Previously, on X-Men. Rogue missed that feeling and needed some Dr. Adler healing. Apocalypse and Mystique were revealed to be masterminding the Dr. Adler scheme to recruit mutants. Cable hates being called darling. Apocalypse revealed that he is determined to destroy the Earth. What happens next? Find out right now on an all-new exciting episode of the Uncanny X-Cast. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Uncanny X-Cast. I'm your host and leader of the blue team, Wes Vereen, and this is my co-host and leader of the gold team, Jason. What up, buddy?
Hey man, how's it going?
It's going great, man. Good to see your face again. Good to be back in the studio.
Back in the studio, hell yeah.
Yeah, and if it's your first time watching, this is a week-to-week recap of the X-Men animated series, the classic from the 90s. And in today's episode, we'll be covering the classic episode, Come the Apocalypse. And before we dive into the review, Jason, I just want to know, what were your thoughts, man? This is your first time seeing it.
Yes, oh man, dude, this was such, I know in the last, I think it was the Unstoppable Juggernaut where we talked about, there was a distinct tonal shift for this series. It went from being kind of, cartoony to being something a little bit more serious in tone. And this episode, holy cow, dude, this is probably my favorite episode so far. The stakes felt so grounded, so real world to the animated series. I was like, damn, they're hitting the writers are hitting their stride with this so well.
Yeah, you have a great point. The stakes were definitely raised. I'll give it that. Because as we'll cover in the episode, it wasn't the threat of danger. Things were actually getting messed up. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just I'm about to launch these nukes. No, you're not. It actually, the whole world, on a global scale, we saw a lot of destruction. This is going to be an interesting episode because I think usually we've agreed on every episode so far. If we both liked it, it was a good one. We both liked it.
Uh-huh.
If it was a bad one, we both were disappointed. So this is going to be interesting because to me, this episode was wildly underwhelming.
Really?
And I know that I loved this episode as a kid, and then now rewatching it, I just I don't know. We'll get into it, but
okay.
I think I'm just, there are certain villains that you end up liking more than the heroes.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Joker. Nobody really wants to see Joker get stopped at the end. They kind of want Joker to have that little moment where he kind of wins, like Dark Knight, for example.
Yeah.
He doesn't win in the boats blowing each other up, but he tarnishes the legacy of Harvey Dent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he still gets that one up. Kind of like those. This, and maybe I'm just such a huge Apocalypse fan that I want to see him win. So maybe but we'll dive into it. So picking up where we left off last time, Rogue did want to get a cure. She went to Muir Island. She encountered a Dr. Adler who turned out to actually be Mystique in disguise working for Apocalypse. And at the very end, she flew into, as she decided to keep her powers, she ran into a Warren Worthington III. So we begin this episode right where we picked off on the stormy cliffs of Scotland, specifically Muir Island. Dr. Adler is transforming Warren Worthington, who's excited and just wants to be normal.
Yep.
And I did love the atmosphere in the shot. You got the sea cliffs, the waves crashing against the shore, the rain coming down, the lightning. And that building is just so well designed. It's so bizarre. It's a very weird looking building on the island. But yeah, we hear Dr. Adler start to do something to Warren. We don't know exactly what it is. We hear Warren screaming a little bit, and Apocalypse reveals himself and is just excited for the transformation. Mm-hmm. What did you think was going to happen as you're watching this for the first time?
When I saw this thing, he's getting strapped into an operating table, clamps and everything. It's this isn't going to be a good thing. How are you expecting this to be something quick and easy? But as soon as Dr. Adler says, you might feel some discomfort, I was like, oh, this isn't... I didn't think he would transform him into a metal-looking angel. My mind didn't go there. I thought it was just gonna be like, kind of brainwashed, or like have like a
Yeah,
scarring or something on him, or an insignia or something on his neck that shows, hey, you're my property now.
right.
But it was interesting to see them like legit transform into something that looks or resembled closely more to what Apocalypse looks like than,
Yeah,
and which I'm now just, kind of putting the two together, that, oh, he's making them look more like him, I
yeah,
guess. So I didn't see that coming, but again, I know I mentioned this in past, like, you're getting clamped into something, and this doctor is being oddly menacing in their descriptions. Like, you should put two and two together. You're a superhero. You should know, like, common sense here, people. Common sense. Come on.
yeah. Warren didn't pick up on any of the red flags. For
No.
example, there's an entire like evil-looking building, and Dr. Adler's the only person. There's no staff. He doesn't have an assistant, a nurse. It's only him.
It's so.
The
Oh
Yeah, the
goodness.
table he's clamped into resembles the operating table that Dr. Frankenstein used when he was creating his monster. Another red flag.
Hmm.
And then the thing that's hovering above the table that they kind of destroyed in the last episode, then just have already rebuilt,
I mean, they got fast workers,
put,
man.
like duct tape on it. Yeah, it's like that thing doesn't look healthy.
It
Yeah,
doesn't look nice. Yeah,
it looks very
it's
menacing.
too
Yeah,
pointy. It's too pointy to be something super happy.
yeah, it looks like a torture device more than anything that could be a
Yeah.
cure. Well, anyway, Warren doesn't pick up on it. He's screaming. And then one question I had during this is Apocalypse tells her that she will be rewarded for her loyalty. But I'm like, why didn't you? She's obviously helping you. Why didn't you turn her into a horse person, a horseman?
A horseman. Ooh. Maybe because her powers is to duplicate and like pretend to be someone else, and he needed that person to be, hey, you're my guinea pig. I need you to lure in the people so I can make
Yeah,
them my buddies, my one ups.
right.
you're
That's true.
He's using her for sure, and I don't think Mystique, has that hamster ball rolling in her head either, that she's being used and
Um,
she isn't going to get rewarded, I think.
yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. I just, with somebody who has skulls all over their uniform, I was like, why not make her death? But anyway,
Yeah.
then we cut to a tavern where Professor X and the X-Men are hanging out, and we get to see our old friend from the Morlocks, Plague. She's come out of the tunnels. I don't know how she afforded an air ticket because airfare or anything because they don't have jobs down there
Yeah,
in the
true,
tunnels.
true.
But she's somehow made her way to Scotland. And Cyclops, I follow other Instagram pages that are X-Men related, and there's this one, X-Men Panels Daily, and he has a trope, something that we've already picked up on and discussed, but a trope of is that Cyclops is clueless around women. And like we discussed on Captive Hearts, how he's not paying attention to Jean. He's talking about how it feels to be an X-Man instead of being there for her. In this
Hmm.
moment, Rogue talks about how she changed her mind. And Cyclops reaches across the table, leans in, puts his hand on hers, and starts speaking to her in her softer tone right next to Jean. And if
I
you look in
noticed
the
that.
freeze frame, it's like they didn't necessarily draw Jean squinting, but her eyes don't look happy either. It's like, Cyclops is ready to risk it all, man. He's wilding out there.
Cyclops is
Ah,
something
but he does.
else.
Yeah, he doesn't get it. And then that's when Warren Worthington magically reappears and tells everybody that he's been cured. Now, I know, like I said, this is your first time watching it. Did you buy this?
I mean, if even if I was a mutant and someone just says you can be cured, like, you don't have to live around in fear, which that is a legitimate scare for people like mutants in this world. But at the same time, the stuff he is saying, like, you don't have to worry about it. Like, you can be normal. I was like,
Yeah,
there's verbiage in there that even if I was in a situation where I had a choice, that is some sketchy sounding stuff that's coming out of his mouth. Like, you're really trying
um,
to get these people to change who they are, uh, and I'm gonna say, like, change them fundamentally as people, I didn't I didn't like it. Yeah.
But I guess like for me, I know that there's a physical transformation about to occur, right? So
Hmm.
you weren't sure what to expect from
Yeah.
Adler's machine. So did you really think that was Warren, or did you know?
I knew it was. I mean, I knew that was Mystique when he
Okay,
came
all right.
in. Yeah, I knew that for sure.
Okay,
But
all right.
what she was trying to say, like what she was rallying, those mutants. That is what I didn't vibe with myself. It's like there are other ways. I mean, this might just be because of where we are today, but like I didn't like that. Like I was like, ooh, that's nah, that doesn't. That's not cool
Yeah.
with me.
Yeah. So what I like is there's a little bit of back and forth between the two of them, her and Cyclops,
Hmm.
Warren and Cyclops.
Yeah.
And Warren tells him to look in his eyes, look me in the eye and say that. And I wasn't sure if that was a dig because he says, "Look me in the eye." So is that like a one-eyed dig at Cyclops? But the other thing is that they're literally standing face to face, looking at each other in the eye. So, it wasn't like he was across the room or had his back turned to him. It was like he couldn't be more looking you in the eye.
It's like, how
You
close do I
know,
need to get to you? Like, do you want me to
yeah,
be like this, like nose
yeah.
touching?
I would have loved the shot of them just nose to nose and Cyclops repeating the line. Like, okay. But Cyclops is ready to blast these guys, and Professor X kind of just disrupts it and says, "Hey, it's not our place to tell
Yeah,
people what they want to do with their powers." And
true.
the X-Men just leave, which I
Hmm.
thought was bizarre because obviously something is very weird on this island.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
but
Professor
the
X, he knows
X-Men,
what's best.
yeah, the mind reader is clueless here. Doesn't sense that something is weird. Um, anyway, so some of the mutants get convinced. They go back to Dr. Adler's for treatment. And then there's a moment here where Apocalypse is watching these events unfold on his TV screen in his base. How? Where is the camera inside of this
I
tavern?
mean,
Who was there?
we there is a canon TMZ in the X Men universe that is just everywhere. They're
Yeah, dude,
everywhere. Like you cannot go anywhere without X Men
anywhere.
TMZ.
Yeah, there's always a live feed that some villain has access to. But yeah, so anyway, he's watching those events unfold, and he reveals his finest creation, and that is Angel. Which I'm not sure if you're aware, but that is the actual name for this version of Angel. So he
Oh.
was he was Angel Warren Worthington, and then when he reappeared as this Horseman version of himself, he's Archangel. So with the metal wings,
Oh, I didn't. I thought Archangel was like just his name overall. So
always.
yeah, always
No, yeah,
Archangel.
I
Oh,
thought the same thing as a kid in the '90s. That this was actually the first version of Warren that I'd ever seen.
mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
I was
okay.
familiar with him looking like this, and then had to find out that he looked like a normal
Normal,
dude
just with
with blonde
wings.
hair and
And
regular wings. Yeah, back in the
oh,
day.
okay.
Yeah, and it was just like how Beast. I'm used to him being a blue fuzzball, but then in the original X-Men, he's just a dude with big feet, and hands. Yeah, but yeah, I always love this design. It's created by the husband and wife duo, Louise and Walter Simonson. So they were the team behind X Factor, and they
Oh,
were actually the ones responsible for this design. And he does appear in the comics in the same way,
oh,
transformed by
cool.
Apocalypse into his Horseman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Archangel reveals how terribly um, threatening he is by launching darts into a TV screen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah.
This is a recurring thing for me in this episode is that Archangel was so hyped to be he's death, he's the Horseman, he's the finest creation. So you're really like, oh, just go for it. And he throws darts at a TV screen. It's so fragile, it's glass. It wasn't really terrifying to me.
Uh huh.
And I remember as a kid like reading with the action figure that he could shoot paralyzing darts from his wings, but how do you aim this way? I never understood like flapping your wings and being precise. It's like how do you release these darts?
I'm picturing it like stormtroopers, and you're just shooting till eventually one hits, right? You're just
Yeah,
I'm gonna keep going. One's eventually gonna
yeah,
hit somewhere.
right, yeah. And I remember the toy back in the '90s. It was cool. It had spring-loaded like holes in his wings so that you could put the dart in there, and it had a little fin sticking out, so you could push it
Oh.
down with your fingers and then angle him at the other action figures and shoot the darts. And as usually small parts are in action figures, the first thing to get lost. So
Yeah.
I had fun with that for a couple months. Um, and the other horsemen that he gathers too, all of them look exactly like they do in the comics, including their steeds.
Really?
It was a very loyal adaptation.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that is what they looked like in the comics because they just look like toy merry-go-round horses. I mean, they didn't really
Yeah,
gallop or anything like that. They just kind of flew,
yeah, yeah,
which I thought was interesting design. I didn't hate it, but I didn't think it was super dope either. Like it was just kind of, oh,
yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, because as cool as Archangel looks and as cool as Apocalypse looks, the other horsemen do kind of just fall flat.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing really unique about their colors or the designs or anything like that, except for the one guy's haircut. Stupid bowl cut. Or I was like, that's the most unique thing. That's terrible. He looks like Lloyd Christmas. But anyway, um, yeah, but yeah. So Apocalypse finally assembles his horsemen and he sends them out and he says, "Go cleanse the earth," right, or whatever. Then we cut to X-Men playing billiards.
Yeah.
And Gambit has a very provocative line here where he tells, I don't, did you remember this? He tells Rogue, "You can drain my energy anytime, Cher.
Mm.
Gambit has plenty."
Gambit being Gambit, man. Like,
If that's not a double entendre, like
yeah,
innuendo line there, and this obviously upsets all the women because the entire X women all team up on him.
yeah, yeah.
Jean Grey uses her powers to make him flub his shot, which causes him to nick the line. And then the very serious Storm even comes in, cracks a joke. "The term rec room does not mean that you must wreck it."
I noticed that as well. I was like, that's a good storm line.
It's great because it's very like you can see her being very serious about that line, but it's fun, and I like that
Hmm. Hmm.
because she says it with a straight face. But Storm's watching the World Peace Conference on TV, and it's happening in Paris. And it looks like humanity is on the verge of world peace. With all these things wrong, I don't know how. The leader
With all this
decided to end.
racism, world peace is on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
horizon.
yeah. Magneto just a couple episodes back was trying to fire nukes. There's sentinels everywhere. There's slave islands,
Yeah.
racism. But
Oh
anyway,
goodness.
yeah, world peace is just about to be achieved until Apocalypse shows up disguised as a gargoyle and decides to ruin everything. And to me, this was confusing because last time they blow a hole. Oh, continuing with our other X trope of characters in the show just blowing holes in walls when there's doors. They blow a hole in Dr. Adler's building and fly out.
Yep.
And Apocalypse is standing there in his base, like, "Go and cleanse the earth." But then the next time we see them, he's leading the charge. Like, what was the point of?
I
Uh,
mean, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. You can't leave your cronies to do what you have to do, I guess.
but it's just like I see them like flying off, and then he just like starts walking on foot. Like it's like, oh, I guess I better go join him. Um, but yeah, so in any event, as an Apocalypse fan, he rules in this scene. Like he's totally crushing it.
Yeah, yeah.
He has this great line of, "I am Apocalypse, look upon the future and tremble." And the voice actor, John Colicos, who we discussed last episode, just totally crushes it. Sound design, too, with everything that Apocalypse does, sounds amazing. Um, and Archangel does the most devious thing I think he does in this entire episode, and that is destroy the Eiffel Tower.
I was gonna mention, I mean, later on we'll talk about it, but no one in the X-Men universe really likes heritage type sites. Like from New York to the Eiffel Tower to eventually the Stonehenge. Like we don't need
Yeah,
this. This isn't anything that
yeah.
is important to anyone. We're just gonna destroy all of this.
Yeah, okay, okay, yeah, we'll talk about that again. But Stonehenge, remind me, Stonehenge, they did not exercise caution at all with this historic site. But to your point earlier of the scale and the stakes raised, I mean, you do have like two international monuments,
Yeah,
the Eiffel
yeah.
Tower and Stonehenge, making an appearance in this episode. But yeah, Archangel flies, cuts the rear blade off the helicopter, causing it to crash in the Eiffel Tower, and that was
Yeah.
a pretty big loss for the world. But
Yeah, no joke.
um, then there's this reporter who I really liked because this poor guy is standing his ground, and while everyone else is running away, he's staying there recovering the news, and he gets plagued for it. Like I think it's is it pestilence comes
Yeah.
by. She's
Hmm.
formerly plagued, now she's pestilence, and she makes him all green in the face. And his cameraman loses his camera, it flips, but it's still pointed up. And this was a cool shot where you're still seeing Cyclops. Or, I'm sorry, not Cyclops, Apocalypse in the camera as he walks up to it and
Hmm.
steps on it and crushes it.
I really, really
Um,
dug that. I was like, they're really going all out with
yeah,
this so far, like to show what Apocalypse wants to do. I really, really like that.
yeah. Storyboard wise, that was a great creative shot choice to have the
Hmm.
camera, still
Like
seeing it through the camera lens, and then
yeah, just this. Oh, so
yeah,
good.
the irising, and then he steps on it, and they did a cool effect of like static and everything, and I thought that was brilliant. And then they dropped the ball in the very next moment because they cut to Professor X watching it, and you see the static on his screen, and then it cuts back to a live feed that looks like almost the same exact shot. And again, I was like, who's recording this? How are they getting this footage? Because at that point, like, just kill the live feed, just a static from then on. But
Hmm.
somehow there was a video able to be resumed. Um, and then the Professor X, I really like this scene because of what Professor X says. And he discusses how this is a threat that's different. This isn't like Magneto. This isn't like those conspirators behind the Sentinels. This
Hmm.
is a real big, dangerous threat. And we have to stop Apocalypse now, or there will be no future for anyone. And that line was delivered with such seriousness and depth that it didn't feel like a corny
Yeah.
classic cartoon line of, there will be no future for everyone, like dun dun dun. It really
Hmm.
felt very grim and very serious.
Yeah.
Um, so I like that. And then we get the X-Men get sent to go help, but they leave Rogue behind. And that was because she needs to go back to Mirror Island to investigate Dr. Adler. Because even though they left Mirror Island, they know that there's something fishy there. Um, and then I wanted to ask you, did you notice this? Because the thing that kind of throws off, or they that alerts Professor X, is that he says those mutants look familiar. They were all in the tavern, and they were all seeking Dr. Adler's treatment.
Hmm.
And he shows the photo of Archangel, and he says, "This one intrigues me the most." Did you question this at all?
No, I did not. I just assumed it was because he made that grandiose speech in the bar. Is there something else that like something behind like backstory wise that
No, they look nothing like how they looked in the tavern. And most of all, Warren Worthington, because he
this
walks
is
into the tavern looking completely human with blonde hair and no wings.
I didn't even
Now
put
he's
the
the
two together. I that makes no sense now. Oh crap, Professor X, you you are not very good at your job.
no,
you,
and now he's a blue human. He's a blue weird looking guy with no blonde hair that you could distinguish him from, and metallic.
metallic metal wings. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense now. Okay, I didn't. I watched this last night, and I
Yeah,
didn't. The two didn't click. Maybe I wasn't just paying close enough attention. But now that you say that, damn, they don't look anything like their normal non-apocalypse counterparts. How
no,
Professor
like
X?
Plague. Yeah, Plague
Why?
had like the beanie and the short hair,
Yeah,
and then now she's
yeah.
got longer hair. The other woman was like withered away, and then now she looks healthy. And again, the only distinguishing feature is that stupid bowl cut. I would be so bad if I were poor and I had this lame haircut, and then I get transformed into this cool horseman of the apocalypse, and I still have my lame haircut. Like
That's
not a
good.
mohawk, not spiked hair,
Just a
not just
bowl
a
cut.
bald. Yeah, still the bowl cut. It's a metallic bowl cut now. So anyway, Apocalypse monologues while his horsemen wreck shop, and again to your discussion of the scale and the stakes being raised. This was cool because it shows like villages getting razed to the ground. I think they show a shot where they're in England and the police are getting
They're
just totally wrecked.
Yeah, I loved this montage. I think it was this montage where is it Pestilence is going like across the village, and then he's just, like, you see these villagers screaming, and just the face gets bigger and bigger until like it's just going through his mouth and just coming out on the other end. And I loved that. Was such a cool little transition.
Yes, I have it in my notes, and I was hoping John. I wanted to discuss it with him because he always has an eye for the animation.
Yeah.
So I started to try and point out too. But I believe it's famine.
Because because it's food.
Yeah, it's food. So the guys, and one thing that I loved about this animation sequence is they're like, I don't know if like they're French dudes or whatever, but they're on a horse wagon,
buggy or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And they're kind of like round face, and then as famine comes by, they start to get very gaunt in the face, and even their pupils become colorless.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really like, it reminded me of Heavy Metal, some of the like the horror aspects of that. It was so well animated.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Come back to that. But I'm glad that you picked up on it too, because that was just such a great animation sequence.
It was.
And
It's so good.
Until you get into his mouth.
It was so cool. I love that.
So as cool as that is, Archangel shows how terrifying he is by launching darts into like a generator at a dam, which causes it to blow up.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
cool. And he says something about you'll be purified with fire and water. Wouldn't the water put the fire out?
Well, he doesn't have a lot to go with. He's making it up as he goes, right?
I'm trying not to be a hater, but the way that you're such a fan of Beast, you could say I feel the same way about Angel. I just think he's absolutely useless. Because he just flies around, and then like the coolest version of him is this Archangel where he just shoots like knives out of his wings. And I'm like,
do you think he has
to? Anybody? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
Do you think he has to pick up those knives after like he's done? Like, oh crap, I got to go back. I got to pick up my wings, essentially.
Yeah. Do they regenerate? Like, does he run out? How many of them does he have? Because I feel like after a few scatter shots, he's done. And then if he uses too many of them, can he still fly?
Yeah, true.
Because they're supposed to be his like feathers. You know what I mean? So if you shoot them all out, even if you did it over a month, like what's your wings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe in the next season.
Yeah. So Rogue goes looking for Dr. Adler, and what did you think of this overall sequence, where she shows up, Dr. Adler's there?
I feel like, so for me, when I was watching this last night, and again, this was legit my first time viewing this episode. I have not seen this before. When Rogue is in, she flies in through the hole and is looking around the lab. We see
skylight,
the big old skylight. We see Mystique kind of shadowed, sort of like. I feel like there isn't that much shadow, but we see Mystique, and then Rogue is looking at Mystique. I thought Rogue was like, "Oh, you're not Dr. Adler." Maybe she did, and she was trying to play, like, kind of lure Mystique out. But that whole kind of few second introductions, again, was kind of weird timing. Like, we see Mystique turning into Dr. Adler and then talking to Rogue, but we also see Rogue looking at Mystique while she's turning into Dr. Adler.
Yes. Yes, I'm so glad you picked up on this.
So I don't know what Rogue was like. Maybe she was looking like this and had her eyes closed, or she was sneezing or something.
Rogue has glaucoma.
I mean, I got some bad eyesight, but I could like the door isn't. I don't know. It was weird.
Open, and you see Mystique's silhouette, and then she transforms into Adler, walks in. Rogue doesn't think anything of it, and still addresses her as Dr. Adler. And I wrote in my notes, Mystique wants to get caught, because you could shapeshift before you open the door, but she does it after.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the shot where Mystique turns away, or Dr. Adler, sorry, turns away from Rogue, but then half of her face is Mystique.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what are you doing? You think she can't see that?
It was very weird. And I, like, from The Cure, did Dr. Adler ever try and, like, capture Rogue too? I thought that was at one point she was held against her will. Like, wouldn't Rogue also remember that?
No, I think everything was friendly with Rogue because Rogue left at the end. Remember, she was helping Dr. Adler at the
Right,
end
right.
repair her equipment.
Okay, I think I'm
So
just getting it
Rogue
mixed up
never
with someone
caught on to the
else.
ruse.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was just,
No.
besides that, like, I thought it was an okay scene. I mean, granted, you think once Dr. Adler punches Rogue across the room, it's like, maybe something isn't right with you. But she eventually, it was okay. It was just kind of weird. Like,
Yeah.
timing wise, it was weird.
Well, I wrote she wants to get caught because she just keeps throwing stuff out there. Like she's obviously trying to shapeshift in front of her to let her know,
Yeah.
hey, I'm not really Dr. Adler. And Rogue doesn't know this yet, but then clamps her to the table, the Dr. Frankenstein table. And it's at that moment that Mystique fully transforms and says, hey, Apocalypse is he's forcing me to do this, yada, yada. And one thing that I wanted to touch upon, or a couple things actually, is one, the Mystique and Dr. Adler link is actually in the comics. It goes back. So there's this other character. I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole.
Okay.
Well, there's another character named Destiny. And Destiny was part of the Claremont run. And Destiny's real name is Irene Adler. And Mystique and her were teammates at the time.
Oh.
But I've also read, and I'm not sure if this was retconned afterward or was always part of the plan. I'm not sure. I could have gone down a deep rabbit hole, so I stayed focused. But Destiny, she had powers where she even can see the future. She sacrificed herself. She knew when she would die.
Oh, wow.
So she did that. So she allowed herself to die in order to save Mystique. So there's always been a link between Mystique and a Dr. Adler, and they even rewrote it to where Dr. Irene Adler and her met early in the 19th century and were lovers and got married.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm not sure if they turned her into a man for the show to not be controversial because that might have been too much for a 90s show, but there was a link there. The other thing is that Mystique in the comics has these cool skulls all over her outfit. Now, did you notice for the show how they kind of changed it?
No. So Rebecca remains Stamos and Jennifer Lawrence. Those are the only mistakes I know.
You're used to, yeah.
Yeah.
So Mystique in the comics has like a skull right here on her forehead where her widow's peak is, and then has skulls along her waistline.
Okay.
And in the show, instead of it being like a human jawline, it's like insectoid, like teeth or like mandibles. So I'm thinking for kids they couldn't have actual skulls and they had to transform it slightly.
That could make sense
to make it
to
make it less scary. But I feel like that's more terrifying. They look like giant bug skulls.
Yeah, I can see that for a 90s show. But at the same time, we got Apocalypse over here making slaves and just destroying Paris. So you got to give it. Yeah, you have to draw the line somewhere. It's just wherever those intersect, I guess.
Yeah, and I looked through to try and find an example of her having those kinds of skulls in the comics. I couldn't find them.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah. But anyway, that weird machine that Dr. Adler has can't catch a break because for the second episode in a row, it gets destroyed when Mystique grabs a gun that was just magically under her table, a blaster, and shoots Rogue in the back into that machine.
Yep.
And then there's this really cool another eye for animation sequence here where Mystique backs away into the shadows. And it was just so well done because the shadows start to consume her. You can see a few highlights, but her eyes are still visible. And I thought that was dope. Then the whole base explodes, and I'm not sure why.
Well, you see, when stuff happens, other stuff has to happen. So in this case, the other thing was an explosion.
Yeah, I get if that machine got shot and it's down and it's on fire or it's smoking, but things just start blowing up. Rogue flies out of the skylight, and then there's a huge explosion.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like your explanation. When things start happening, other things happen. So then the X-Men fight the Horsemen, and mutants keep falling on top of cars.
Dude. The Horseman that falls onto the bus. I don't know why. Just the sound effect they used and just how not dramatic they made it. It was just kind of funny and it was almost slapstick and just like bonk, And like, I mean, that's how I
That's
took
awesome.
it. I don't know if it was meant to be like that, but I was like, oh, that was kind of weird. That was kind of goofy.
Yeah. Yeah, and continuing with the theme of like X-Men sometimes being really convoluted, it's Pestilence, and she's flying at these. Wait, who she's flying? So anyway, she's heading towards somebody, and she's coming at them with their hand. And I thought that's her normal power. Like when Apocalypse turns her into Horseman, couldn't he like juice her up so where she doesn't have to actually physically touch somebody to give him that? Otherwise, it would take her a very long time to do the Pestilence to everyone. And Jean says, we can't let them touch her. We can't let her touch them.
Mm-hmm.
And then Storm devises this plan to. So Jean sends the message to Storm, who then creates a fog cloud so she can't see anything. And then Cyclops blows her out of the sky. She's a metallic, like looking being on a metallic horse. Couldn't Storm have just hit her with a lightning bolt and ended it there?
I mean, for dramatic purposes, probably Cyclops was like, yo, we need you. I need this to be dramatic. This is my big shot right here. This is my moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Cyclops does do this. I think as the leader, he strategizes so that he gets the cool moment. Like, I'm going to knock her out of the sky. But yeah, anyway, the whole base explodes. That happens. And they keep landing on cars. Wolverine is actually totally useless in this episode.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And what I didn't like about this is he like claws into the back of that horse. It's War's horse, and they're flying away. And then he tries to have like a quip. He tries to make a joke, and then he gets kicked off and lands on a car again. Another person lands on a car. And I was just like, dude, why are you so useless? And now you're trying to do other people's shtick. I didn't understand it. And then, continuing with these X-Men being reckless, there's like a tower that's about to fall on Wolverine, and Gambit helps him, but instead of like, I don't know, doing it in a safe way, Gambit just throws an exploding card, which causes now multiple flying rubble.
Yeah.
Because Wolverine could have just rolled out of the way. Now he's got a lot of debris to dodge, and that's a lot to ask.
It's like the scene from Prometheus where Charlize Theron is running in a straight line from the giant ship
my God.
instead of just
my
going
God.
this way. He's like, nope, I gotta go beeline it. I got that feeling, like, but I also totally get where you're coming from.
That is so frustrating.
Where Wolverine is just such a useless jerk. This episode for like not a jerk.
I hated to see it.
But
oh yeah,
it was stupid. Like you're flying on a metal horse. Don't be funny. Oh, you got kicked in the face. Oh, well, there goes your moment.
Yeah, what was his plan? Like, I don't. Even if he kept attacking while the horse was flying away, like you got to fall and you can't fly. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Anyway, maybe he was going to commandeer the horse. But whatever. Wolverine's useless in this episode. And then the Horsemen just give up so easily.
Yeah.
This was another thing I had an issue with.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that, because it's like a couple little slaps to the face, basically. Ow.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
And that is all it takes for the four horsemen of the apocalypse, like the beings that are supposed to bring the end times. Are like, oh, that was kind of easy.
Yeah. They encountered the smallest amount of adversity and just completely gave up. One Sentinel can take out this whole team, right? Like, as we saw at the end of Slave Island. But here, the four horsemen of the apocalypse just tuck their tail in between their legs and run away. And, like, Archangel even has a line right before they give up. It's a cool shot of his shadow as he flies over the X-Men, so his shadow is kind of looming over them. And he says, like, no one stands against the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And then I think one of them gets hit, and he just, like, scoops Pestilence up off the car and they fly away.
Yeah. What I did like about this overall fight scene is there was a couple of times where we see, like, a pan shot of all the X-Men, like, foreground and background. I believe it's this episode where, like, they're all...
I think it's this episode, but I think that's the one at Stonehenge.
Oh, is that the Stonehenge? Okay, then
I think so. I don't know. Sorry, I cut you off.
No. It might it might be at that, but there is a scene where like we see the main X-Men minus Jubilee. Where's Jubilee in this?
Thank God. No, yeah. She's in it, but she stays home with Professor X.
Yeah, but there is a scene like where we have them all in their like kind of their their poses ready to go, especially
Yeah.
Wolverine. I mean, I love that pose of his, but I
Yeah.
did like that aspect of it. But I see where you're coming from. Now we both are just talking about it again. I was super hyped on this episode going in because like, oh damn, this is kind of cool. Oh damn, like I love his voice. Oh damn, but no more Eiffel Tower. Oh damn, but I can see when I start thinking about it.
Oh, I don't want to take the air out of your tires.
Oh no,
Like,
and
it's
you're not by any means, but at face value, I really dug this episode. But when it's like Charlize Theron. If you start thinking about why she didn't go this way, it's really stupid. But
yeah.
it's one of those turn your brain off type of moments for me. But yeah, I can totally see how, as a grown up, as a 34-year-old man, how well this doesn't make sense. Or why were they doing this? But hey, that's '90s, man. That's the '90s.
It's the
baby.
'90s, baby. Yeah, it's the '90s. We only got a 30-minute time slot. But it's like you're not. No, yours is actually the popular opinion. Like I've read that this is a highly reviewed episode. It has 8 out of 10 on IMDb. Some people have ranked it in their top 10 episodes of this series. And like I said, as a kid, I remember loving this. Maybe just because of all the action.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the difference for me is that, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Angel or Archangel now. I thought Archangel was cool, but then as I watched this episode, I'm like, he just throws knives into TV screens. And then it's like I just needed a little bit more out of him, and I would have liked for this episode. I would have liked for this whole story arc to be a 3-episode deal where this entire second middle episode focuses on how terrifying Archangel and the Horsemen are, and then in the third one, it's time for the showdown with Apocalypse.
Oh, I didn't know this was like a one and done. I thought this was like just gonna go on. Are you serious? Was this the only episode?
Whoops. Anyway. Sorry about it. And then, but it's like, and then I think the other thing too is that last episode had so many things, multiple storylines that were all working cohesively together. Mm-hmm. And you also had the strong emotional story of Rogue's personal battle with her own mutant powers that kind of anchored it and gave it that emotional heart, so that all the action sequences on top of it, for me, the stakes were raised. This was like a mass global event, but the people getting attacked I didn't really care about. Like those villagers in France, those random British police officers, the World Peace Organization. Like, it's just extras for me. Like it's people just running and screaming.
I can see that.
Which is shocking because usually I love big scale destruction. So this was a new thing for me as well. Then we cut to Stonehenge, where Rogue has taken Mystique's advice, because Mystique. I get why Mystique told Rogue something about Apocalypse and tried to seem like she was the victim, but why actually tell her where his base is? So anyway, Rogue flies to Stonehenge, knowing now where his underground base is. That doesn't go well for Apocalypse. I'm sorry, for Rogue. She gets like pretty much annihilated by Apocalypse. Mm-hmm. And just as he's about to put the finishing blow on her, Cyclops, who I guess hates historical monuments, completely blasts the living bejesus out of Apocalypse, like just knocks him into tomorrow, dude. Like flies off screen. I was like, y'all made Apocalypse look so weak, so quick. And as we were discussing earlier, I think this is one of those moments where Cyclops is like, hold on, I got the shot. Gene, get this on camera. And he just totally.
Is this my good angle? You got this. This is for TikTok. I need this. Like, no, this is it. I can feel it.
I need this for TikTok. Yeah. That's awesome. So not only does he knock down Apocalypse, but then almost in the next exact scene, he shoots his wife in the back. I'm gonna show this clip. We're gonna cut to this right now. Okay. But as you watch it, Cyclops just starts blasting, but before he does, Jean is running, and then Cyclops shoots a blast, and Jean falls to the ground. And then as the camera continues to pan, Wolverine is also on the ground. And I was like, in the very previous shot, there's an explosion which causes Gambit to either be knocked over or lose his balance. So you never see Wolverine or Jean Grey get hit. Mm-hmm. The only thing that could cause it is Cyclops shooting a blast carelessly, because we already saw how reckless he is with Stonehenge, and I think he knocks his wife and Wolverine out. But yeah, this sequence is cool. Those full of those cool pans with the
Yeah, I
poses.
think you're right about that. I think it's this sequence here. I did like those pans, even
Yeah,
if
they have two of them. Yeah,
there's friendly fire, which I'm gonna say is canon at this point. I think that's too funny not to be canon for this episode.
I swear, I like a forensic like scientist reviewing like evidence footage, dude. I rewound it back, went frame by frame, and I looked like, is there any other explosions? Like, is there anything else that could possibly have caused Jean to get knocked down? She starts running, Cyclops shoots a blast, and she falls to the ground. I was like, all right, cool. Either that or she trips on a rock, which is very clumsy.
Wouldn't put past either of those, honestly.
But then, like, was Wolverine taking a nap? Like, I never saw him get knocked out or do anything in the fight. He was just useless. Knocked to the ground. She needs to slow these people down, is what she says, and she takes her gloves off and then touches Archangel, which causes him to be unmind wiped and now causes her to have the evil of Apocalypse in her, but she doesn't show it. Her face just turns blue for a little bit.
Yeah.
What did you think about this change of heart?
It was sudden. It was.
I totally agree with you.
It was shoulder rub. I'm cool. I'm better. Bye. It was very like you've seen in the past. Rogue, takes some, zaps some of their powers and kind of their inner demons when she touches people, but this change of heart felt a little or it was forced, in my opinion. Like it was like we need 100%. Something to make Archangel back to normal. Just have Rogue touch her. That's it.
Yeah,
we don't need anything else. It was weird. It was also weird that Rogue is now keeping that inside, that hatred inside, which I thought it maybe from other things, I just assumed it would go away within like a couple hours or something like that. So
right.
So having her say, now that hatred is in me, I was like, have you been holding, like, do you not, like, does it not just fade away after time? Is it something that she deals with and keeps, and she has like little lock boxes of stored Juggernaut power or stored Gambit power, just like that she just kind of bottles up? It was very weird. Like, I didn't understand it.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting premise, and maybe it's something I already know, or maybe it hasn't been explored. But her taking on all that trauma from other people has got to have an eventual,
there has
like,
to be
that's got to
a
be
breaking
baggage on it.
point. Yeah, there at some point something like that cannot just be held within. And now I don't know if that is something that's true or not, but it feels like if that is what it is, then woof, she's like the strongest out of everyone on that team.
But it's like when she drained Cyclops of his powers in the episode where they fought Magneto, she didn't like develop a love for Jean Grey all of a sudden. Like it's like very selective of when she takes certain traits of people, and that's why I'm like, I always thought that she just absorbed powers unless she touches them for too long, in which she might permanently take something on, or if they're very evil, and the second she touches them, there's just something so powerful within them that it takes her out. But anyway, I felt like it was an uninspired, unmotivated kind of like change of heart for Warren, who then immediately just shoots all his darts and he hits the Horsemen, who just fly away. Yeah, like the Horsemen just ride off together. So I want to know, like, what are those three Horsemen up to? What do you think? Where do you think they went after this? Because Apocalypse bails in his spaceship, but those three Horsemen are just wandering the Earth.
They are probably, and this is just a guess, they are going to Genosha.
Genosha, huh?
To relax on the beach that is now flooded. They're going to go fishing, and eventually they're going to find that giant underwater sentinel just waiting for someone to come back that is a mutant. And from there, it's going to be an entire spin-off series. It's going to be like Gilligan's Island, but the three Horsemen.
Yeah. Oh wow.
It's going to be an
Over
entire
smiling.
thing. It's going to sell
Yeah.
millions.
Yeah. I like that. We should work on that. Yeah. It was
Slapstick.
just so bizarre.
Yeah, it was very like again. This shows that these people are not. I don't know. It's just anticlimactic.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like Professor X had that great line of needs to be stopped now, or there will be no future for anyone. And yet they don't really stop Apocalypse because he flies off
Hmm.
in a spaceship, and they don't really stop his horsemen because they're still living. Like all you did was
Hurt them.
intervene.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
you hurt their egos. That is pretty much it.
yeah. All he has to do is replace one horse person, like a horseman, and just get a new death. You still have all four of them, and you're still Apocalypse.
Hmm.
He just lost his underground base under Stonehenge, but one could argue his spaceship is way cooler. So,
You
and
don't
I
want
mean
to
that
have
was
a
really
place
his base.
underground. You don't want to have
Yeah,
an underground place.
I always wanted to. But yeah, and it's another useless thing where so they have this cool shot, the cool pan of the group, and everyone has like a projectile type power. Like they're like Ambit's I think got a card that's like,
Hmm.
ready to charge, Cyclops has blast, Storm's commanding the winds, Jean Grey's got her telekinesis glowing, and then Wolverine just has his claws. And and I think he realizes how kind of weak he looks in this group shot because he growls and then tries to jump and attack Apocalypse, but completely jumps over him as Apocalypse is sinking into the ground using his like floor elevator. And then Wolverine just starts thrashing at the ground like ah, and I was like, come on, dude, it doesn't even look like he jumps toward him. Like it looks like even though Apocalypse is sinking, he jumps over him to miss on purpose.
this this is not Wolverine's episode. We've had some really
Yeah,
good Wolverine episodes we've
yeah,
talked about, but this one just shines him as the other guy.
yeah. I think he literally, if you like totaled up how many butts were kicked in this episode, he's got a goose head. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's probably gonna have negative points because his own got beat, like dropped
Yep.
on that car. Anyway, yeah. So Archangel says he's only capable of terrible evil, but as I discussed, all he did was fly around, break a screen, and blow up a dam. And oh yeah, I guess he destroyed the Eiffel Tower.
He
So,
did kill people with the helicopter, so he does have that marked against him.
dude, you're
So yeah,
right.
so he did kill people to break the Eiffel Tower, which
You're right.
now that I'm thinking about
You
that,
didn't see the GI Joe thing of them
yeah,
parachuting
we
out.
didn't
Like,
see it like they did in the which in the tank. You see the tank falling, and then there are two men hanging on the side. But the tank was
yeah,
falling forward. Unless there is a hatch on the underside, they just how did they get out of the tank in the first place? And and then yeah,
dude, you're
we
right.
didn't see the helicopter pilots jump out, which I thought we would, but we
Yeah,
didn't. So
they
there's
totally died.
we saw actual deaths on screen that were
Yeah.
caused by an evil dude, which I don't think we've seen. Like we've seen, and I don't want to get too much into it, but I feel like those are the
Um,
first legit. Like, oh crap, he's actually like, these people actually killed civilians or
yeah,
military,
yeah,
and it was shown. Shown,
yeah,
but it was shown.
right. Dude, yeah. Oh, I missed it. I missed that. You're totally right on that. I got to give you points for that. He did kill those helicopter
He
pilots.
did, yeah.
Yeah, dang. Okay, well, all right. I like him a little bit. I dislike him a little bit less now. Because he's death, so he does kill. So all right, like he at least served his purpose.
Hmm.
And then as we kind of discussed, he does have that line where he says, "The evil's out of me, but now you have it."
Which,
Rogue's like, "It's gonna be in me," and he just says, "Well, I hope you can deal with it better than I did," and just flies off. And that's the end, I guess. It's,
yeah, yeah, that was like, I commend you writers for some of the episodes you did, but I also come on, like you could have done something better than that.
I audibly said, "What? Really? That's it?" Like as the episode ended, I was like, "What?" Because they've been doing a great job of like leading into the next thing or kind of building in, and this one just ended so like, well, that's all, folks. And I was like,
Yep, yeah.
And that's why I think they tried to cram too much story into one episode. That's why I would have liked this to be a
Hmm.
three-parter. This one just focusing on Archangel and the Horsemen, and then in the third one they fight Apocalypse, and then you have the change of heart. But at least you get a full episode of Archangel just being this terrifying creation, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, before we do final thoughts, I was going to ask you if you could be any one of Apocalypse's horsemen, which one do you think you would be picked for?
I think because I, being me, and I've known you for a very long time at this point, so you know how I
Yeah,
am.
yeah.
I would be the least effective war ever. Because at one point I had a bowl cut when I was a kid. I had a bowl cut haircut.
Oh, whoops. No, but you didn't have it like his. Like yours was, yeah. Yours wasn't terrible. Like yours was nice. His is anyway.
But I feel like, because I feel like war, no. Maybe famine, no. I don't know. Because I'm a very happy go lucky dude.
I know. I know. I was gonna say I can't picture you as any of
I
them.
can't really picture myself as anything. I guess I like cooking, so maybe famine, and I would be just like, I'm gonna give you a little bit less potatoes this month, or your chickens are down to two
Diabolical.
instead of five, or something like that. Like it's more of an inconvenience. Uh, Famine
And you're
for
like, hey
me.
guys, could it not be famine? Maybe just like ration, you know, maybe something a little less. Like you're out. You're out of the band.
It's like, oh, well, okay, I guess. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. Oh, so long. If y'all need ration down the road, just hit me up.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome.
What about you?
I would definitely be war.
You'd be more.
I
I can
in
see
college,
that.
yeah,
I can see that.
in college, I had four. It was the four. We were the four horsemen. We called ourselves. It was me and three other roommates, and we were the four horsemen, and that's what we always called ourselves. And we had pestilence because he never did his laundry or did his dishes.
Oh
He
no.
was he was the sloppiest one out of all of us. Then we had then we had famine because the guy would always eat your leftovers. Like he was the dude where you'd go in the fridge and you were like, "Where's my Panda Express?" You know what I mean? And it was like gone. He ate it. He'd always eat everything in the fridge. And then me, I was always just starting stuff. I was always getting into it. You know, whether with other people or just starting some night activities. So just yeah. And then our chillest roommate was Death because we were just like, yeah, you're about as eventful as a Death. Like you're very mellow.
if
So
uh,
yeah,
if this was in San Antonio, if we still lived in San Antonio, we'd be called the Four Locos.
the Four Locos. Oh my God, and that's the story for another time.
Stupid joke. I just had to bring in Four Locos somewhere because why not?
No, it's great. Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, yeah, but I definitely be war. I could be a lead rabble rouser. But yeah, and yeah. So final thoughts, like we kind of discussed. To me, it was a little bit underwhelming. I'm glad you liked it though,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's cool seeing Apocalypse. So I'll take it from that. And you did help me feel a little bit better about Archangel.
Yeah, man.
Knowing that two helicopter pilots died makes me feel a little bit better.
But yeah, overall, man, again, I really dug this episode. I hope we see
Yeah.
more of Apocalypse. I assume we will because, god dang, I loved his voice acting. Like,
Yes.
out of
Yeah.
everyone, I felt like he didn't,
Yeah.
no one phoned it in by any means, but you could, there was some cheesiness. You could tell they're reading a script, but Apocalypse, the voice acting, whatever they did to the voice actor's voice for the show,
Yeah.
so good. Like
Yeah.
I can see why you like that Apocalypse over Oscar Isaac's Apocalypse. Now that actually
Oh
watching
man.
an episode
Yes.
that actually has him in it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I found this a very enjoyable episode. And
Yeah.
yeah, man.
Cool. Well, that's it, everyone. Thanks for everyone watching at home. We appreciate it, or wherever you're watching. Appreciate you sticking it through with us. And that's all for now. We'll be back next week, same X time, same X channel. See ya, y'all.
Laters.